Number 2, Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Great to be with you. Thanks for being with us. Always appreciate it. And if you would, do all the like and stuff if you're on the video and pass it around. Like randomly take the link and send it to somebody you haven't spoken to in 3 years. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, look, check out the Jeff Cameron Show. They're like, Steve? I haven't heard from Steve in years. Where's he even living? Anyhow, that would be great. So you can do that. It's good for us. We appreciate you. Hey, what? Go ahead.
I was going to say I did something like that last year when the Mets were on their run. A couple of friends of mine who I haven't talked to in a long time, I got their numbers, and I would just send them the picture of Grimace when we won, and they would slow play it because I think they thought that they should have the contact information, which I know they don't. And they say, awesome. And then I'd send it again the next time they wanted. Like,
and they're never using your name? They're never using your name?
Like, did you enjoy the game? I'm like, I did.
They're like, from where did you enjoy the game?
I still haven't told a few of them. Yeah. It's just this one thing like, well, what a win, buddy. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Good job, dude. You know what's funny? I'm terrible at when people change their contact information, their phone number if they have to, for any reason. I don't go back into their contact and then delete the old one and put their new one on there. I just forget to do it. I always tell myself, I'll do it. Like, hey, heads up, Jeff, it's John. I changed my number. This is my new one. Put it in your phone. Cool, John. Will do, brother. Thanks for the heads up. Year goes by. I haven't done it. I never switched it. I get a text from a random number now that I don't know. They're like, hey, man, how you doing? Want to go out for a beer? Can't, buddy. I'm like, who the F is this? It's like I forget.
Yeah. There was a guy that I think you met him once. He came down from Bristol when we were over at ESPN Radio. His name was Peter. He was our affiliate relations director.
Mm-hmm.
I met him downtown a couple of times as he was doing trips.
Anyway, yeah.
So I had him in the phone as Pete, and we have a friend,
mutual friend named Pete.
Yeah. He's in my phone as Ozzy, but I forget that all the time, or I used to forget that all the time. And Ozzy and I can have a real conversation. And so I'd be texting Ozzy my thoughts, and it'd be going to Pete from Bristol. And I'd be like, hey, man, want to go get some beers tonight? I think I could pound about 6 because today's been a long day. And Pete would respond, I'm in Bristol, man. Like, what? I'm like, oh, crap, I've done it again.
I would love to have 6 beers with you, Tom, but I'm in Bristol, Connecticut. There's zero chance that's going to happen.
Bro, that was an effing 638 on the back 9. Way to go. And what? I didn't play golf today.
I don't play golf, Tom. I'm in Bristol. It's cold year-round.
Are you talking about a gun?
Oh, good stuff. Well, by the way, I can't believe we are really on the precipice of fun stuff here. First of all, another reminder just for the people that have asked me, and I've seen a bunch of people, opening day tomorrow. There you go. Tom's got that. That's 4 p.m. Tomorrow is opening day, Major League Baseball. Welcome back, Major League Baseball. Welcome back, the sights, the sounds, and most importantly, not just the game that I love, but the sounds and the consistency. The consistency of baseball is greatly appreciated. Without waxing too poetic here, we live in a hectic, herky-jerky, effed up world. The consistency of baseball is that wonderful, calming sound, that hum that gets you over the frustrations of your day. That's the beauty of baseball to me.
Well, and one great thing about at least my team schedule, I like seeing my team have their home opener right away. So when they're on the road, look, I'm happy to have baseball back, but it's just you feel a little bit less energy. So a week from Friday, they have their home opener, and that'll be another big day. But the first 6 games that the Mets play are indoors. I know that I'm going to get 6 games.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing in the world is when your team plays in some godforsaken, it makes no sense location to start the season, like Detroit or Boston or Colorado, where they frequently have snow this time of year, and you get your hopes up, and then there's no baseball. So I'm thrilled that we open with 6 indoor games, because I think you open with the Marlins for 4.
Yeah, we did the same thing last year. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. I'm happy that we're able to go and play because they have a roof, so we're not going to get rained out or anything like that. They'll probably have it open. It'll probably be beautiful, but yeah, we don't have to worry about it. We're able to.
There's nothing worse than getting geared up for that thing, and then the Tuesday before opening day, you start to hear the chatter from your local news stations in your team's market. Like, oh, not sure there's going to be baseball. And, oh, that's the worst.
You and I were on the golf course together when the Pirates opened on the road for some reason with the Chicago Cubs, and it was freezing cold in Chicago and sleeting and raining. They weren't sure they were going to get it in, but Key Brian Hayes hit a home run in his rookie season. We were on the course together when he did it.
Yeah, I could tell you what hole we were on. Old Killarn, number 6. We were listening. That's the down the hill par 4 to the left. Yeah. I don't know why I remember that, but I sure as hell remember that.
Well, because we were listening in the cart and driving up to our ball, and he hit it out, and I remember thinking, all right, that's the rookie third baseman who's mainly known for his defensive wizardry, not offense, so maybe he'll be a better hitter. No, he's not a better hitter. He's an sorry hitter. He just happened to run into one on that day, his rookie season, which was nice. But, yeah, weird about baseball opening days, by the way. I feel like most people, I think, associate big moments in football, like Florida State football, for example. You can remember where you were for any number of football games, whether it be there live, watching as they were on the road. Maybe you were at a bar or you're with friends at their house or whatever it might be. And you can remember even what you were doing or what you were eating or, the company you were with, whoever it is. But baseball, is such a long season, 162 games. It kind of acts as a blur a lot of times. But opening days, God, I go back a long ways in my brain where I've compartmentalized opening days, and it's like a Rolodex. I can just go through all these opening days and remember certain. I can be like, oh, well, that's the day that John Smiley pitched for us. And I'm like, what? Smiley pitched for us in the early 90s. Why am I, it's crazy,
Well, and we've got a lot of those memories at CP over the years. I can remember all kinds of crazy days. One, we stayed all the way through to the NCAA championship game with North Carolina Villanova.
One of the great games of all time, and that's the 3 at the buzzer, yeah.
That was an awesome day. I remember an opening day where Robinson Cano was the reason we beat the Nationals. I can remember the opening day at your house where we had Dylan G throwing the baseball.
Oh, that was hurtful, yeah.
Yeah, that was when you got your 2 new Carrier units from Barano Heating and Air Conditioning.
That's correct. They were being installed, yes.
I remember being at the old B-Dubs, which I think was the varsity at that time, the small window when it was called the varsity, when the Mets played the Reds on opening day. And Santana started because that was the early game. So you got we were there basically at breakfast to get ready for that game. And I called into the Mad Dog show, and I tried to do as bad of a job of a call as I could, and I successfully did it, and he thought it was a great phone call. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of awesome, and I didn't get a chance to mention it in the opening hour because we were obviously reveling in Florida State's walk-off grand slam, suck it, Florida, for the cycle, never seen that before conversation of hour 1, which took up much of the hour. But I do want, for those that haven't seen it, it's all over the interwebs. So you can YouTube this, you can, wherever you go for your highlights. Go watch Joe Espada, the manager of the Houston Astros, welcome in Cam Smith's mother and father and family and girlfriend to the locker room as he announces that he has made the big club. But do so by yourself. Be prepared. It'll get you. And Link Jarrett commented as much last night when he was asked about Cam making the Astros opening day roster, which is an incredible accomplishment. I mean, he was just here. He was just here. It feels like an hour ago. He hit a triple over in Jacksonville last year. Last year, Tom, he hit a triple in Jacksonville in the game against Florida.
Well, just the world is like with the Mets, 6 degrees of separation, like Kevin Bacon's game. So they play a lot because they're on the same side of the state, the Mets and the Astros in spring training. His first 4 home runs, I don't know if he hit a 5th or not, but his first 4 home runs in spring training came against the Mets. All of
So
them.
the Mets have earned Cam Smith an opening day roster spot.
Well, we open the season tomorrow in Houston. So hammer a Cam Smith anytime home run. Hammer that. Hammer the Cam Smith home run prop for tomorrow.
Well, Cam is a great player, and you could see all of the potential that Cam had from day one. And once he cleaned up his defense over there, he's going to play right field, by the way, in the bigs. I had a suspicion he was not going to play third base. But anyhow, his versatility is probably greatly appreciated because in a pinch he certainly could, and he'll play it at a league average level, and that'll be good. But he's out and right now where they can utilize the athleticism, and he's got a big arm.
And at home, it's a very small area, so that's nice too.
Yeah, so he's in good shape there. But anyhow, he makes the big club, and I mean, you know how wonderfully talented you have to be to make it to the bigs as a hitter that fast. Now, pitchers, listen, none of us thought Paul Skeens was going to be screwing about in the minors for very long. I mean, that's a guy who the first time you ever saw him pitch at LSU, you went, oh, well, we're not beating that LSU team. And, dude threw 102 and had 4 pitches for strikes in college. In college, you're like, well, ain't nobody touching that. That's different. But he was a phenom. And, we've seen transcendent pitchers like that, guys who have that kind of stuff, and they get called up very, very quickly. You're not going to fool around with that arm. You're going to get it up to the bigs because it plays. Hitters, a little bit different. Those kinds of guys, the adjustment from college to pro, especially in the old days, used to be very, very significant. It's less so now because the quality of the game in college has elevated where you are seeing, borderline major league pitching from time to time in each weekend series that you have, certainly in a good league like the SEC or the ACC. That is the truth. So the transformation from college to being a big league opening day roster starter, by the way, is not – the golf isn't as big as it once was, is what I'm trying to say, but it's still significant. It's still significant. Go back and look at a lot of very successful college hitters in the last 7 years of the MLB draft, and look at how long it took them to get to the bigs. Now, there are exceptions. Florida's had a couple kids make it pretty quick. But for the most part, even your best hitters, that kid out at Oregon State, there have been a few others, it takes a couple years, takes 3 years maybe a lot of times, like certainly 100+ games in the minor leagues to adjust to what you're seeing, because these guys have secondary stuff that you've never seen before. They study your swing. They know how to get you out. They make adjustments. So it's very rare that you see what's happening here. And so for Cam Smith, man, that is not just you're a great player with real potential. That means you're adjusting very quickly on the fly. And it also means that the transition from aluminum bat to wooden bat didn't mean anything to him. I mean, the power is all there. That's why when you draft, and for those of you that are relatively new to baseball, and I've been pleasantly surprised how many people have kind of jumped on board in the last 2 years in this show, admitting to us that they didn't watch a lot of baseball. Now they are. The new rules have helped that. Plus, Florida State being good in baseball again is something that has interested them, all those things. But that's why when you draft a really good hitter in college, I'm of the mindset, Tom, that unless they have preternaturally gifted something like speed, like maybe you're the fastest guy in the league or something like that, unless you possess that, I want you to be a big bitch. I want you to be a big bitch. I don't need a 5'11", 185-pound hitter who hit a ton in college because I don't know that we're going to see you transition with that same sort of power that the aluminum bat provided against average pitching in college to the bigs. It's going to be a bigger adjustment, but it's not a big adjustment for a guy like Cam Smith, who's a monster. It's not a big adjustment for a guy like Cags at Florida, who, if you watch him in the spring this year, I mean, he's hitting balls 460 feet. Well, yeah, he's 6'7", 250. He's a monster. I mean, lever arm, Tom. That's not going to take much for him to get the ball up out of the park. So give me a big dude if I'm drafting a hitter in the early rounds. That's all I'm saying. because he can transition pretty quickly. And you see with Cam, that's exactly what happened.
Well, what I'm seeing here, just looking at some of the clippings, the Cubs fans already who were happy about the Kyle Tucker trade and getting him. Remember, Cam Smith was a selection of the Chicago Cubs, but he was sent as one of the prize pieces back to Houston in exchange for Kyle Tucker. Some Cubs fans are saying, great, awesome. Kyle Tucker's a really good player, but, he's getting into his late 20s, and here's a kid who's 22 years old and who's already a major leaguer in a not-so-bad organization.
Right.
Awesome. He would have been under team control for a long time, and apparently we're not spending like, the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Mets. So what the hell, man? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough. Well, congratulations to Cam Smith. And what a touching moment to have captured on film. For those of you that haven't seen it, it is worth your time. It'll put a smile ear to ear. A lot of great stories coming out of camp. I told one yesterday for the bonus hour, for those of you that missed it, talking about the catcher with the Yankees. And we've all seen that footage too. By the way, Tom, I didn't ask you because we didn't have a chance to talk about this, but the catcher who made the big club, and he was 29 years old. He's a career minor leaguer. He had bussed tables. He had been an Uber driver. He had been a substitute teacher. And he gets Aaron Boone sits him down and says, you made the big club. I'm not good when the news is really positive. So say I find out something that is going to, I know, significantly impact your life in a positive way. And I'm the one who gets to tell you the news. So if you give me that kind of information, hey, tell Tom that he's going to get this, or it's a huge bonus, or whatever the hell it is, right? If I'm armed with information that is really cool and, to some degree, something that I know is going to cause you to be very, very happy, I can't fake it. I can't pretend like I'm trying to give you negative news and pull the old switcheroo on you. I can't do it. I'll start smiling. I'll give up the ghost. You'll know that I'm full of it because I'm not able to deadpan it. Whereas many other ways of trickery, I can play that kind of stuff off. Like a surprise party or anything like that. I can play that kind of stuff off. But if you watch the Boone interaction with the backup catcher that got, made the big club, he's like, listen, this is the hardest thing a manager has to do. It's, catcher for us is a deep position, and it's highly competitive, and I've really appreciated how hard you've worked. I mean, he's setting him up to be sent back down. And the whole time I'm like, no, I'm getting uncomfortable watching it. You can see the guy's concerned, like he knows what's coming, and he's about to be sad. And Boone does a good job for like a good 30 seconds before he goes, no, man, you made the team, like that kind of a thing. I couldn't have done it. I could not have done that. I would have been like, dude, you made the team. Come here, brother.
I could do that 100%.
I can.
There's a dry wit that runs through my mom's side of the family. Maybe it was they were beaten down in Ireland and they had to get on the boat to come to America. Maybe that's what it was. But my grandfather on that side had a pretty dry, deadpan wit that you kind of never knew if he was joking or not because he would just live it. He would live the joke. There was never a wink. There was never a point like, ha-ha. No, you just kind of had to get it. So I take pride in those types of little switcheroos.
I've got no problem making a smart aleck comment, a snide, even mean-spirited, while joking, comment to somebody and living in it, waiting for them to get the joke. I got no problem with that, especially when I know they're smart and they're going to get it in a second. I can sit there and be like, in about 5 seconds, he's going to realize that there's no way I'm serious about that. Sarcasm, any of that stuff. I got that. It's just the good news. I want to be the bearer of good news for people that I care about. I just want to be able to say to them, like, I can't hold a secret from Bryce or Clark to save my life if it's positive. Chris would be like, no, don't tell him. Don't tell him. But, I think we should go ahead and purchase that ticket for the round trip to New York next summer, like when we came to see you. The kids had been asking to go to New York City forever. And then when you were like, yeah, come on up. We got a place. It's all good. Let's go. Stay a week. When I bought the tickets, Christy wanted me to wait till the next day for some reason to tell the kids. She's like, oh, don't tell them. We'll surprise them tomorrow at dinner. It'll be a great way to start the weekend. Well, within 5 minutes, I walked down the hall. When kids were going to New York, I couldn't do it. I was all excited to tell them. I wanted to see their faces. I can't live with that. You want me to go to bed tonight? knowing that I'm taking you guys to New York City and that we just purchased the tickets? No, that ain't happening. I'm telling everybody. We're all going. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Stay with. So I don't, I, as a player, didn't think much. I didn't care. I knew he was a good player, but I didn't spend a lot of time on it because he didn't play for my team. He played for Stanford and then the Colts. I've never been a bigger fan in my life of Andrew Luck than I am now. My man is ruthless. He's having none of your nonsense, Tom. This is the guy we want to roll in here and run operations at Florida State. Now, he's doing it at his alma mater, and he gets to live in Palo Alto, and he's filthy rich. So this is a really good gig for him because he just gets to stay home and be rich and do cool things for his school, and live in a beautiful area of the country. But it's the mentality that I'm loving. Yeah, you saw they just up and fired the football coach yesterday.
Yeah, I have no idea the circumstances, so I'm interested to get educated on it.
The circumstances are, and I was reading between the lines when I did the last story on Andrew Luck, where I don't remember who it was, he was fired, and then I think he was firing the basketball coach. I think he was firing the women's basketball coach or something like that. He was pissed. He came in and just was like, yep, nope, this ain't going to work. You got to go. And also began to ask about NIL money and trying to raise, and he started up that group. He did all these different things right off the bat. He's like, this is not going to get it done. We got to do better. I'm tired of watching us suck. And oh, by the way, Stanford has sucked. Do you realize that Stanford has not had a winning season over the course of a full year? The one exception is the COVID year where they played 6 games and they went 4-2, but that doesn't count. So they have not had a winning record at Stanford since 2018. Sweet Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. But I remember David Shaw certainly would be on NFL draft coverage every year.
Every year. Anyhow,
every year.
David stepped down in 2022 after going 3-9 a couple of years in a row.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of years, but, Harbaugh had –
Harbaugh was the truth.
Yeah, not that David Shaw wasn't good, but Jesus, are you America's coach? What the hell?
No. David Shaw wasn't good. He ruined what Harbaugh had built. Let's just be honest about this. You can say it. It didn't work out with David. I am friends with a huge Stanford backer, alumni, and booster. And she hates David Shaw. She's like, nope, I was yelling to all my alumni people, get his ass out of here. This is not getting it done. I hate this. So anyhow, when he stepped down, they hired a coach named Troy Taylor. And this is less about that and more about the mindset of what we're seeing from Andrew Luck right now. Anyhow, he succeeded Shaw, and he had been a successful coach at a much lower level. I was applying this to Florida State in my mind when I read the story. They brought him in because he was kind of in their backyard. He had coached at a place called Sacramento State. And none of us paid attention to Sacramento State football, but he was very good there. He won 30 games over the course of 3 seasons. So, he was successful, 10 games a year average winning. And they're like, oh, we can get this guy on the cheap. And he gets the region of the country, he recruits well here. Let's bring him in. Well, they did, and he sucked. And he went 3-9 and 3-9 in back-to-back years. And yesterday he got fired after 2 seasons. They said, my man was like, this is not getting it done. The more I think about it, the more I got to get you up out of here. But he was looking for a reason. And that's where the story goes. Apparently, Troy Taylor was not nice to some sort of assistant and was rude to a woman who was involved in compliance. And that's all my man needed. As soon as he saw there were accusations that Coach Taylor had spoken condescendingly to a female staffer, my man Andrew Luck came sweeping in and said, oh, not acceptable, Troy. You got to go. For cause. We're not paying you dick. Get out of here.
Whoa.
We're paying you nothing. Get up out of here, you bum. And I just love the mentality. I think it's the best. Troy Taylor not having it. I mean, Andrew Luck not having Troy Taylor. And that's how quickly it happened. So he fired him. We'll see what happens from here. But that's just a funny story. That's just my man. Nope. I'm waiting. 2 fingers to my eyes, Troy. 2 fingers to you. You so much as slip in the halls at Stanford. I can call it a hazard. You're out of here.
So what's the speculation on the replacement? Odd time of year to go hunting for a football coach. Is it going to
Well,
be
I'm
Andrew?
sure
Is he going to do it himself on an interim basis?
I would love it if he's like, I'm hiring me. I'm smarter than anybody we could bring in. I know Stanford football. I'm in charge of the NIL. I'm giving it to us. We're going to go out and get some players. I promise you that. Although that is one of the few schools. A lot of schools like to tell you that they hold their football players to the same academic standards as all the other students, or at least something close to it. But they're all lying. The vast majority of them do not do that. Like, I'm not trying to besmirch any one player, but there are several players that have found their way through the halls at Notre Dame that would have never been there. And that's true of most institutions. Nothing wrong with that. Sliding scale, I get it. But then don't turn around and tell me, oh, no, our football players are held to the same standard. No, they're not. No, they are not. Stop doing that. They are not. They're not. Anyhow, that said, Stanford does. So you have almost an impossible challenge at Stanford where you got to find kids that can really play at a high level and be wicked smart and handle the grueling academics of Stanford. And that combination is rarefied. It is hard to find. So now you're doing that, Tom, at a time in which the conference dissolved. Like, well, I don't really know what the mission statement is at Stanford other than to be bowl eligible, right? Wouldn't that be a great season? 6-6?
Yeah, and I a rise in prominence in the ACC around 2030. Maybe there'll be some exits and departures, but we have to be ready and primed for 2030 as a football program to pounce once the exodus happens. Otherwise, that athletic department is in fantastic shape because they spend unbelievable amounts of money on every single sport.
Well, they win that damn Sears thing every year because they're good at fencing and water polo and all the stuff
Right.
that doesn't, yeah.
They get freebie points to participate in everything, but they're good at everything. So, yeah.
They are. I actually, to your larger point, and this is the conversation we can have today, and it's actually a multi-segment conversation because there's another great article, although a lot of it seems to be sort of standard right now in the mindset of many that are following college athletics. But our boy over at Yahoo wrote another good piece kind of summarizing where we're at. And we were doing some of this the last 2 days. Ross Dellinger, if you want to read the whole thing yourself, you can. I'm not going to go through all of it. Could impending rev share changes help Cinderellas in the future? And I brought this up talking with you yesterday in the bonus hour in that opening segment. You and I talked a lot about where this is all headed. And the thought was obviously that schools in the Big East who do really value basketball, have a chance to perhaps be elite again and outspend their counterparts in the Power Four, that they're going to outspend an Arkansas or an Auburn or Florida out of the SEC. They're going to outspend an Ohio State, an Indiana, you name it, in the Big Ten, a Michigan State, right? There are a lot of blue bloods that are kind of predicting this, like, all of our money has to go to football now, just about all of it, of the $20.5 million, and because it's the biggest revenue driver. And we're not going to spend more than, say, $4 million at best on basketball in a lot of especially in these schools in the SEC. And we're quite concerned that St. John's might spend $6 to $7 million on their basketball team. And I say to Greg Sankey, suck it. Go to hell. This is exactly what you engineered. All of it. And all of a sudden, you're worried that somebody's going to be able to outshine you monetarily when they've been beaten to death by you monetarily, and your thievery from other conferences in which you've cut them off at the knees with little regard for what you were doing to the sport. And now I hear SEC people saying, well, this doesn't seem equitable. I mean, they don't have to worry about a football program. They're going to be able to spend disproportionate money on basketball. How are we going to compete? How? The world's smallest violin, sir. Everybody is looking at you like a clown. That was his quote. I mean, we're going to have to get a handle. I mean, it should be sport by sport. Get out of here. Shut up. You don't get to say it. You don't get to say it.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to me because football is the biggest driver. But let's just say I'm an institution in a Power 2 conference. You mentioned Indiana. Now, they just had a good football season, but we know what they want to be as an athletic department. They want to be exceptional in basketball. They always do. I've got to know if I'm an athletic director or president of that university that if I decide to invest in basketball over football, that is to say, like, instead of spending 17 million of my cap on football, I'm going to spend 10 and I'm going to reinvest in other sports, that you're not going to kick my ass out of the Power 2 whenever there's this reorganization, because I think it would be good from a conference viewpoint if Michigan State and Indiana, and you could point to maybe Purdue as another example, if you had different programs within your conference, prioritize different sports so that the conference can be great in multiple sports across the board. Because otherwise, let's just say that everybody in the sport, and I'll make the math simple, they use 90% of their cap. I don't think they can actually do that, but 90% of your cap went to football. So everybody's spending $18 million on a football roster. Is there really enough talent across the country for everybody to spend $18 million in power football to fill their roster? Or would you artificially inflate the market where a lot of mediocre players are getting way too much money for their services, whereas there's a lot of exceptional players playing in Alabama and Ohio State and Oregon that are only making marginally more than the mediocre player that's at their counterpart at Purdue or Washington? Or so, like, I find that whole economic thing interesting because I don't know that there's enough money in the cap for the market to look as clean as it does, say, at the NFL level, where the cap is $280 million. If you want to spend a ridiculous percentage of your cap on Patrick Mahomes, you can do that, but you still have $200 million to go. Whereas in college football, if you're spending 18 right now, Beck is bragging down in Miami about making 6, and they're probably paying him 3 and change with the, like, I don't know how that all shuffles out unless different universities and different programs are allowed to prioritize different sports. But I would think right now, given the way this sport is reorganizing, if I'm an athletic director at Indiana, it's probably the cleanest example in Power 2, I have to invest in football because I don't want to get cut when it comes down to football turning into this different thing in the next 5 years.
Well, this is fascinating because you're right. Indiana will always be, it's the Hoosier state, for Christ's sakes. It's basketball, 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 although they got a taste of the good life last year. They got to see how much money they could make by being a playoff team. I mean, it's still stunning to me that happened, but it did.
Well, so some market corrections coming, though, if that's the case. Because let's say a program like Indiana says we have to operate by what is our economic driver. We have to operate by spending on by spending on football. These mid-majors might spend on players, top 20 players in an individual recruiting class. But at some point, like, I think their price would have to come down. So maybe football's market goes up for the elite players, but does basketball's come back to earth? Because right now it is so expensive to land a top flight one and done player.
Well, here's a good example of what we're talking about. You're talking about I think two schools fit this, Tom, that are very interesting. We're hitting on one of them in Indiana. The other is Kansas, who has gotten very serious about football. And Leipold is one of the best coaches in college football. And he's had a margin of success the last couple of years. And I got off to a terrible start, but they ended the season really well. And remember, they beat the bejesus out of Colorado. And that kid rushed for like 350 yards in that game. But Indiana is paying, I just pulled this up. Indiana is paying their head coach $8 million a year. Kansas, Tom, this is crazy, by the way, just spent $500 million on football renovations.
Oh, jeez.
Well, they didn't do that because they're going to pour all their money into basketball.
Right.
And Kansas is like the basketball school besides Indiana.
Yeah.
It's them, North Carolina and Duke. It's like once upon a time, UCLA. I mean, it's insane. But think about it. Even North Carolina, what'd they just do? Well, they went out and hired Bill Belichick, and they've committed all this money to renovating their football stadium. They're all in on football. In fact, it started a fight in the community at North Carolina. They're mad at Bubba Cunningham, who they should be praising for gerrymandering the selection committee and getting them in when they had no business being there. But anyhow, I mean, buddy, that is a fascinating dilemma these basketball schools are facing right now. From the article, by the way, pull out, many administrators live in fear of their school being left behind during the next great splintering in the sport. A presumptive realignment shift is going to happen to a smaller, more consolidated group of programs coming post 2030 when the new television contracts come up. So these schools are like Indiana, want to be part of that pared down super conference that's coming someday.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I didn't read the article, but okay. I see. Yes, they're in danger. Michigan State is not in danger of being left behind in the pared down universe, even though they care very much about basketball and their football program has been, or it's had its moments. It's had its moments over the last 10. They did make a playoff. They're not in danger of getting left behind. Indiana is in peril of being left behind. I would say Purdue is in peril of being left behind. So what do you do? Kansas, I suppose, it maybe wants to be in that conversation, and they want to be grouped in if they're spending $500 million on their football facility at this point. I know they're not in the Power 2, but they might want to be in the conversation about when this whole thing reclassifies. Yeah, this is I find it interesting, and this also leads me to believe that we're never going to get there to where the Cinderellas dominate. You've got too many big brands that would fail. Kansas would begin to fail. North Carolina would begin to fail. Kentucky fancies themselves something they haven't been in some time, but they would begin to, I don't know, man. I don't think we're ever going to get there to where the 20.5 just is. I think that we're going to be in a place where they're going to find a way to make the numbers work. So that these programs are too big to fail, to use an analogy of the last 15, 20 years of economics.
Tom, I'm going to tell you something right now. My favorite part about the article is now people are beginning to talk about what we know. Despite all of these changes, despite all of the incorporating the money to share with the athletes, finally making sure that we're not throwing $15 million a year to a college football coach and building extravagant facilities with chocolate fountains and video games and waterfalls and nonsense so that we can explain away that we're not making a profit from all of this excess money we bring in through football television contracts and the like. They now began to share with the players. We all thought that was fair and equitable, that at some point you got to give the money to the players. You got to find a way. Well, they did. But what they're doing now is they're reverse engineering because they screwed it up. They did this without rules, without any forethought about what was going to happen to the market, what was going to happen to the sport, what all of this meant to the great sport of college football and really college athletics in general. And now you have a lot of people at a lot of places going, I don't know what to do here. But what does it add up to? Well, what it adds up to is corruption, which is what it was doing before when you weren't paying the players. Where this is going is circumventing, quote unquote, the salary cap. There's no way. That's why all of the, to our point, and we've been hammering this point home, there is no way the collectives are going anywhere. Those collectives are going to be used as an arm of the university to raise funds and hide money that they then pay players and get around the stupid, what's the thing called that's going to govern these deals?
Deloitte.
Yeah, the Deloitte thing's never – come on, man. That we know exactly – the under-the-table payments of yesteryear are going to return now.
They will. I agree with you there, unless you get to a point where the market is satisfied and nobody wants to pay the players anything outside of the rev share. You know, that's because you can still get endorsements as a professional athlete in major markets across the country, and if you're one of the big four sports, and that's a reason that major free agent decisions are made, where you might decide to go play in New York, even though you're going to get taxed out the ass. You know, you're doing it because your endorsement opportunities are better than if you stayed in wherever, Minnesota. You know, if you're a hockey player, you go play for the Rangers, get super taxed, but I can actually be on billboards and I can make a lot more money. Like, that is still a reality for professional sports, but I believe that percentage of what's coming for college sports is still going to be way higher. It could match your NIL. It could exceed your NIL in some cases underneath the $20.5 million. Beck is a good example. People are speculating he's making 6 total. University might be cutting him 3 or 3.5, but you're making an extra 2.5. I think that's what's coming here until you get to a place where the rev share is high enough that you don't have to go outside of that model. But it can make you cross-eyed if you think about it too much. I think basketball is a place where you're going to see crazy market corrections, whereas football is going to be kind of linear on the way up, like the NFL salary cap.
Yeah,
I think basketball has been so out of control that you're going to see a little bit of a wrangling come back. But the Cinderellas might be successful programs in the interim while this thing is figuring itself out.
By the way, my friends at Tried and True Consulting want you to know that you don't have to process transactions or change your POS to work with them. If you're using, say, a Clover or a Square point of sale device and want to put up a menu board that integrates with you and your point of sale, give Don, Joe, Rusty a call. They certainly can do that for you. You make changes on your device and your menu board updates immediately. Tried and True really working well right now within the community and the businesses here in Tallahassee, saving them money, making you money. Noles helping Noles in a lot of different ways. They do so many things. It's cool. It's awfully cool. If you switch to processing with them, you're going to save money, and they'll lay bare for you the options and the ways in which they do that. You don't have to take my word for it. They're eager for your call. Look them up today, triedandtrueconsulting.com. Listen, at the end of the day, let's be honest. If you take a payment, you don't really care how it works so long as it works, right? And you don't really care who's doing it so long as it's cost effective. Well, if you can take a payment, just like you always do for your business, say a credit card payment, process it, and save money on the fees and still be able to do and function the way you've always done, why wouldn't you go with our friends at Tried and True? Noel owned. What did you help out today? Go to triedandtrueconsulting.com. Very short segment allows me to do something I don't do. And that is feedback to Jeff. One from yesterday reads, this from Steve, who pissed in Jeff's cornflakes this morning? Good Lord. Steve, I think, was upset that I'm a little jaded and cynical about FSU football. That just marks the reality of our situation, Steve. I had a wonderful breakfast because I didn't eat one. I don't typically eat breakfast, but my first meal of the day was delicious either way. And I'm just a realist. I'm pragmatic. Our situation isn't good. I have my doubts. I am concerned.
This is where I feel a little bit different on the heels of last segment's discussion, though. You know, Indiana is having to make hard choices to try and stay ahead of the tsunami that's coming. That's going to clean the shores of Power 2 football. I would argue we're in fine position for that reckoning that's coming.
We are, and that's why when you look big picture, you don't fall to your knees. It's only in the immediate that you fall to your knees, because the current reality is we're out here swimming around like a bunch of morons with no land in sight. But the truth is, luckily, land is there. It is there, and we're going to find it. We're not going to drown out here.
We are where the tsunami begins, and like Aquaman, we're going to ride that tsunami onto the land. But right now we're in the water, and we need the tsunami to save us.
And we've just been wandering, and it's not fun to tread water like this. I don't like it. I don't like it. And I'm mad about it, and I'm mad at our coach about it, and I'm mad about the whole situation. And so forgive me if occasionally I express that, because it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
So
now,
on Monday, I was getting Ira on the phone, and he said, how's the show going? I said, well, I think he and I, meaning you and I, are going to every month or so have a segment like we just had, where we just have to get it off our chest that we're so frustrated about where things are that we're aiming to win 8 games. He's like, yeah, that's understandable. I was like, all right, hang on. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Then I put him on hold.
Well, it's just ridiculous. By the way, Chris, in responding to people who've reached out to me, writes, damn, Jeff, you said Lodis was going to be a killer before the year, and when you're right, you're really right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. I did say that. And I am really, really right about that. That is correct. I'm more right than I thought I would be. I thought I would be right, but not this right, because this right is something to behold. Lodis, just so you know, may win the Golden Spikes. He may be the best player in college baseball currently. That's ridiculous. If you don't believe me, he's opting over 1350. He's hitting .475 with over 100 at-bats. He has driven in 30 runs, and he just hit a walk-off grand slam for the cycle. It's unreal. Hour number 3 forthcoming. Stay with. Hour number 3, final hour, bonus hour, power hour, and away we go. Can I continue the Lodi's conversation from last hour at the end there? I want to point out, because I was citing his offensive numbers, which are insane. And again, for those of you maybe just tuning in, perhaps you missed it, I brought up what he's doing this year, and it's nothing short of insane. It just, look, when you get past 100 ABs, it's no longer flukish. I mean, we're not talking about a very small sample size here. He's had 101 plus at bats. He's hitting .475. He's slugging .1364. He's scored 29 runs. He has 9 doubles, 3 triples, and 8 home runs. He's slugging over .840. His on-base percentage is over 500. It is kind of scary. Now, throw in, and this is the thing I wanted. He's also 4 for 4 when he steals bases. He hasn't been caught yet. He doesn't steal bases often, but he's 4 for 4. And I do want to point out that he is, so far, from what I've seen this year in the ACC, and I'm paying more attention to the ACC right now just because we're a work in progress. We're a good work in progress, but we're still a work in progress. Tom and I were talking off the air before this segment that still need to get the bottom of this order worked out. But anyhow, that said, he's, from what I've seen, the best defensive shortstop in the ACC. I haven't seen all the SEC teams. I've seen a lot of them. There's some really good teams. But he's one of the better defenders that I've seen play the position in college. And he made another great play last night defensively that gets lost because of all the offensive explosion. But, I mean,
he makes it look so easy, too.
He does. And that is uncommon in college baseball. It really is. It is getting better. But, man alive, my man is a complete player and is really the engine of this thing. I mean, he has been fantastic. And I don't just say that on the heels of the exciting moment last night. It was something to behold. I really wish, and I haven't had a chance to bring this up, can we just get this hashed out and worked out so we can have a professional broadcast of 2 elite programs in the state of Florida? Can we not have, hey, we're going to watch this from the atmosphere from outside the ozone layer? Can we? I don't want to be on a rocket looking down at the field over in Jacksonville trying to discern whether or not something's a ball or a strike or the strike zone's good or bad. I have no idea, and neither do you. And I know we all sat there last night and probably bemoaned certain calls, but you don't know. None of us do. This thing is shot from the freaking roof. You got no idea if it's high or low. And then when they cut to show you if it's inside or outside, it's the side angle, it's the profile. You have no idea where that ball is. It looks like it may have crossed the knees just below. Man, get out of here with this nonsense. We got to do better. And it's not Florida State's fault. It's not Florida State's fault. But this is not acceptable.
So one thing I heard is that stadium is under some kind of construction that might prohibit the center field cameras, but you can find something. You can find something to make it work.
Well,
and it wasn't supposed to be broadcast in the first place, and so somebody somewhere made a decision and said we've got to put this on ACCNX. As we discussed, I think it was Monday, but it might have been yesterday in the bonus hour. That these things tend to happen at the 11th hour. This is not the first time we've been at the baseball grounds and somebody doesn't want to foot the bill to execute a broadcast. So
really frustrating. Yeah.
I'm glad we got it the way we did. In fact, I hope that they have just kept the sounds of the park rather than piping in that UF broadcast. Now, that guy apparently was hired to just be the play-by-play for the video, because he said several times, as you can see on that replay right there, which means they weren't just piping in the Gators radio network and overlaying it on the broadcast. But my God, he had a lot more game notes from Florida than he did Florida State. And his best call of the night, and I say best in air quotes if anybody watched on ACC Network Extra, was a fly ball to center field in the 9th inning, in which he said, I think it was Max Williams.
Just short. It didn't even get to the warning track.
Max Williams just barely had enough room to make the catch. He barely had, 25 feet before the warning track. Get the hell out of here. It's a guy who messed up a call, and he was too proud to correct the fact that he misjudged a fly ball off the bat. But that dude was far more prepared with Florida notes. So my guess is he rolled out a sports info for Florida, and they just gave him a microphone. So, yeah, it was a bit of a travesty last night.
I cracked up. The center field call, Tom, not once but twice. Not once but twice. He had a routine fly ball that didn't come anywhere close to not even the warning track that he certainly had ticketed for the seats. And then the second time is the one you're referencing where he tried to make it very dramatic because it was a run game in the ninth or whatever. And that was, or the eighth, that was something to behold, listening to that guy try to will balls out of the park. And I don't have any ill will towards this guy. I don't know who he is. It sounded like a slappy they just threw out there. The broadcast started late, whatever it was. But yes, he was certainly, and again, I don't know who he is. I'm not trying to take shots, but he was pro Florida. I mean, that was obvious to anybody listening, right? I mean,
yes. Now he got his voice up for big moments for FSU because he knows the assignment. And this is one thing just for broadcasting, protecting our own in the craft. When you've got a technical disaster on your hands, it's very hard to be good. It's very hard to be good as the broadcast is going on. And that thing, the second or third inning, they finally start to pipe in the audio. And it sounds like somebody tuning a transistor in 1954, trying to get the Shadow program at 6 p.m. on CBS radio. There he is. There's a 2-2 pitch. Like, what do we have, sunspots? What the hell's going on over here?
I said it on the show yesterday. I've said it for the last several years. God, I miss Sunshine Network. I really wish we could just do something that accommodates, the program status that is Florida State and Florida in baseball. I mean, we got to do better than this. These are two elite programs. Like, stop with the nonsense. Like, you're right. It's transistor radio with a camera on the moon.
That's right. Well, and it's the old camera that we used to get when you were starving for spring training highlights and you were watching SportsCenter back in the day. That's the angle that they would give you. And it'd be like, all right, Mo Vaughn hit one out today. And it's way up in the upper tank of the single A ballpark. And you're like, okay, this is what it looks like through a net. This is what it looks like when I'm staring through a net at a baseball player. That's what we had last night. And you know what? The ACC made deals with Swaffy's son. They were able to cut a check to Raycom to get a broadcast. Why can't you just cut a check to Fox Sports Florida or some kind of third-party network for one night? It's just one game. No big deal.
I would have thought, I don't know, but obviously they've got all kinds of money invested in the SEC network as opposed to the ACC network. I would have thought one of those two channels would have wanted to broadcast a Florida State-Florida game. I mean, it's a great, I mean, you need inventory. You don't really have anything else going on at that time.
Yeah, I think this one falls on our side of the ledger, and I say our with the, John decide, but because we were the home team at the neutral side, I think that one fell on the ACC to get something done. So I think had Florida been the home team, you would have seen more infrastructure.
Yeah, you definitely would have. We'll see who broadcasts it when we're in Gainesville next, right? Because I'm sure that's going to be an SEC network game, and it's going to be all kinds of pro Florida. Important win last night, though. I do want to say that. I know, look, it's relative. We tend to overstate these things. Link said as much, by the way, in the pregame. I think I was driving, and I heard him talking to Eric Llewellyn, where he was asked about, the impact of this game. And he said, look, if you're a Florida State or Florida fan, this is as big a game as there is, and you love it, and it's a rivalry, and it matters, and you'll always remember it if you played in it or coached in it. And even if you're a fan of either one of these teams, you'll remember these matchups. But he said, I think we overstate a little bit what they mean in terms of recruiting, for example. I mean, Florida still got a lot of really good commitments last year in their class, despite the fact they got swept and run ruled twice by us. And I might note that Florida State did a very good job of quickly revamping their roster, even in the wake of having their own hands of being on the other end of a sweep against Florida 2 years ago, right? So, you've seen it's not as big in that world as we might think it is. But I would say, as it relates to this team this year, specifically, I think that was an important win. You got so manhandled here in your own backyard by Florida pitching. Had you given that one away a game in which you led throughout the entirety and had given up all of one freaking hit for the vast majority of the night. Had you given that away and proceeded to, I think, look back on it and say, well, gosh, once again, the same kid who shoved here in Tallahassee was brought in when they had to have it and shoved again against this lineup. By the way, I never want to see that kid again. He owns our ass. We can't hit it. We can't sniff that kid. Whatever that kid's name, we can't touch him. But right. He came in again and was dominant. You would have felt vastly inferior to a Florida team who, by the way, has started their SEC campaign at 0-6. So that would have been a bit of a problem. You already lost a game to Miami, who sucks. And then you would have lost a game, another one, to Florida, guaranteeing that you lost the series. Now, Florida doesn't suck, but they needed that one. I think they needed that one for their psyche. That was a big deal to go and get that win. And again, Florida doesn't suck. They have started 0-6 in the SEC.
Yeah, the way that you would have lost it, I think had it been, in a weird way, had you just lost and the bats were cold again and you lost 4-1, but Florida was in front the whole time, I don't think it would have been as big of a deal as what was presented before us, which is you're gifting them runs. I mean, with the walks and the hit batsmen and the pass balls that are called wild pitches, and I mean, they're pass balls, especially that second one. We got enough to see that replay. What the hell kind of lazy-ass technique is that nonsense?
So can I just say that this is now 2 years in a row. Like, they're really going to have to figure something out here. Maybe the Carnes kid turns into a really good catching prospect, but he's here because he can hit. And that he was dreadful last night. And yeah, you know how I feel about Jackson back there.
Right. Well, we didn't catch a replay on the first one other than the angle from the sun, as you said, and that went through his legs. So that ain't good. However it gets between your legs is not good. The second one, I don't even know what the hell that was. It looks like he was trying to serve a drink on a platter as he's walking through a restaurant rather than fielding a baseball.
No, it wasn't good.
So, between that and the hit batsman and the walks, you're thinking, oh, man. And then the error in center by Max, which allows the extra base, the non-tag at second, which could have beat the run stepping on home plate. So all of those things conspire, and yet you're one hitting them. And then Florida would find just enough magic in the ninth inning and just enough hits to put them over the top. Psychologically, that would have been extremely damaging, I think.
It would have been tough to recover from it because you were better than them last night. You really owned the day especially with your just basically stopgap measure starters.
Right. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't have overcome it. I'm just saying that, it's different than losing 3-0 and you're just like, well, it wasn't our night. That would have been a very, very difficult loss to take, because the one thing was, as much as there were control issues on the mound, every one of those pitchers had their moments. The first three guys, they all had their moments where they gave you a little bit of hope, a good response to what was a bad weekend on the Hill for the staff outside of Alini.
I want to point out that Link makes me laugh. I mean, the way in which he's able to describe something that is substandard while not using harsh language is that of the smoothest politician. It is so well done. The verbiage post-game when talking about the problems catching the baseball, Tom, was something to behold. He said, and I'm paraphrasing because I watched it last night, but he said, well, to overcome some of the things that we had to overcome, certainly Carnes has caught the ball better than he did tonight.
Well, and
he's had better days catching the baseball, has he? I would hope.
I mean, geez, but his eyes didn't change as he said it too. That's the impressive part, is he doesn't give you any little Coach Cameron translates moment. He's locked into the way he is, and he will say something biting indirectly, but he won't give you a look of frustration. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's like, you got to be freaking kidding me.
This happened. This has happened a bunch. If you were to say to me, okay, how good is this baseball team? I would tell you very good. What's their potential? Very good. It's very high. They've got great potential. I think some kids are emerging that are only going to get better And if that happens, you'll lengthen your lineup a little bit. I think you may have figured out your situation in left field with DeLamelore. He is very, very good. The 0-2 home run was huge.
That power is impressive to right
Yes.
field. That, I mean, look at Hauser. That thing is on the circus. That's a big ballpark that he did that.
Yeah, no, DeLamelore is emerging now as a guy. Like, you've got a guy. And I know they liked him before the season. They just needed him to get ABs. So you're starting to see some answers to questions that you've had in areas that you needed answers at around this time of the year, which is exciting. And I still think, look, you got a unique situation at third base. It's not good. It's problematic right now. Your problem at catcher defensively, both these gentlemen, great kids, are woeful defensively. That's not ideal. So you've got some real holes there, but you're great up the middle in terms of shortstop and second base. Not good out in center. Max is an average center fielder at best. I don't even really think he's a center fielder, but they got to start him somewhere. So there's that. But again, overall, I think you're probably a plus defensive team. Not elite because of those holes, but plus because of all that Lodi's does and Farrow does. And I'll tell you, Miles Bailey's gotten to be very good over at first. He's fine. He's a plus player there too right now. He's only going to get better. So I'm fine with all of that. We'll see moving forward, but I think your starting pitching is still your strength. So there's a lot of stuff that I like. But if you were to say, now list the negatives, and I kind of just referred to them, I don't love your situation at third. I don't love your situation at catcher. That would be it. And I think there's some uncertainty in the bullpen, but there's enough arms, so we'll see. But I that's what I'd say. They got to get better at. We got to see this. I don't know that those are things you're going to get better at catcher anyhow. You're fine defensively at third. You just don't have any pop over there right now. You don't have any real strong hitting offensive power over at third at all.
Yeah, it looks like this lineup might go 6 or 7 deep at most, 6. And that's fine. Like, you can totally do enough if your starting rotation, if Arnold returns to form and Vellini keeps doing what he's doing, that's enough to set the pace. I thought last night's low-key hero was Joe Charles. I mean, he was fantastic last night. Yeah. And I was sad to see us give up that late situation where he doesn't come away with a win. But I think last night for me, the big takeaway is positive. It is that you had 3 guys that are your middle relief types, and Link even said after the game that they went a little bit longer than they usually do.
Yes.
There was a situation where maybe you could yank a guy a little earlier, and you roll the dice and he came up short. But I like that response from the Miami series where you're saying, all right, Prescott's good. Now who else? And I know Martinez has had some excellent moments as well. But last night was very good for that confidence level because that lineup is really talented, and we might lament the control issues, but you were one hitting them into the 9th inning. Like, that's not nothing. That's a nice performance last night.
I also very quietly want to point out that Miles Bailey has an at-bat that we should really take note of. He's down 0-2 in a hurry, and he works the walk. And for people that don't think about these things, and I know a lot of smart baseball people listen to the show, and they know what I'm talking about. But for those that are casual viewers, pay attention to when a guy is a freshman in a moment on a stage like that against really live arms. Florida has very good arms. All have a lot of stuff, a lot of velocity, all those things. Now you think about that as you're sitting there 0-2 in a tight ball game, and you work a walk. You work those next four pitches and get on base, it's absolutely huge, and it shows the ability to adjust on the fly in intense situations against good pitching.
Yeah, well, and that's the first of 2 back-to-back 0-2s because the home run is hit off an 0-2. So that's how you start the inning is your first 2 hitters go 0-2, and you end up with 2 runs in that situation.
Crazy. That's maturity.
It is. Well, and then to give your guy some flowers, even though he's slugging like, whatever, I-75, Jackson's walk to start the 9th is huge because he gets up 3-0. The kid's clearly wild. And then how often do you see this with a closer type? Somebody who's got insane stuff. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's going to be a 6-pitch at bat, and he gets to 3-0 or 3-1. You don't want to swing because he's wild, and then he's going to bury a slider, a perfect one, and dot it at 91. It's like backwards K, and you felt like you were going to get the leadoff guy on. That Jackson was able to get on base in that situation starts the meat grinder of pressure, and clearly they had nobody else that they were comfortable going to because they didn't go to anybody else. Next thing you know, the bags are loaded, and Harrelson gives you the infield single to tie the game. That ninth inning spun out of control for both teams so rapidly. That was one I'm not going to forget for a long, long time.
It was fun. Speaking of fun, booking a trip this summer, it's fun. You get away with your friends. Maybe you get away with your family. Go somewhere. If you're going to be anywhere near coastal Pinellas County, you're going to be near, say, Dunedin or Palm Harbor or Clearwater, we've got friends there that can help you out. Above and Beyond Vacation Rentals. That is aboveandbeyondvr.com. Aboveandbeyondvr.com. I've talked to you about them. Many of you have booked your stays with one of their properties. They have over 30 units, some as luxurious as you are, Dancing with the Stars here. You've got 3-story condos on the water that you can rent. You can also rent little cottages, little bungalows, quaint little beach motels right on the water. 18 of those properties, of the 30-plus properties that they have, also feature a pool. And we're removing the middleman fees, all the nonsense. You don't have to pay VRBO fees. You don't have to pay Airbnb fees. Go to aboveandbeyondvr.com and save right now by using the promo code JCS. You'll get 5% off your booking, plus all the money you're saving without those middleman fees that I just alluded to. They're booked up through the remainder of March, of course, March nearly over, and through the first half of April. But you've got the rest of April, May, June, July, August, September, October, all the way into 2026 to be able to book and act now. I'd do it. These are good folks. They're Noles. They're waiting to hear from you. Matt and Jen will answer directly if you text them at 727-253-5995. They'll also obviously welcome your booking online, aboveandbeyondvr.com. Do you remember? You might, Tom. I think you might have been there. I don't know if you were at this particular practice. I think you might have been. When it was a pool of reporters, and I asked Mike Norvell a question about, at that time, I remember we were talking to him. It was over by the indoor practice facility. It wasn't over by the gates where they walk out, where they set up with the tables. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the need. This is before last season. He was talking about the need to force turnovers and to get, the defense has got to do a better job of creating turnovers. And I've certainly fallen on both sides of the argument over the years about how turnovers are produced in football, period. The NFL, college, high school, you name it. And it's a healthy debate. It's a fun one because it's nuanced. It's not as easy as to say it's all dumb luck, that it's all turnover luck. But it's also not so easy to flip a switch and create turnovers. When you hear coaches say this, they'll say, well, we got to do a better job of creating turnovers. And at that time, I asked them the question. I said, can you do drills that lead to forced turnovers? Is there something you can do to help create turnovers in practice? Is there something that can happen? And he got the question. I don't think he loved the question because I was calling into question this whole idea of you got to do a better job of creating more turnovers. Implied in my question was you really can't affect that. It's just luck. But it is and it isn't. Well, obviously they did not create turnovers. They had 6. Yeah. 6 turnovers last year. 6 effing turnovers. It reminds me of Euchre. Thanks for the 1 hit. Yeah. Thanks for the 6 turnovers, guys. It would happen in the everyday course of life with 11 nondescript strangers thrown together onto a football field. They would fall into 6 turnovers produced in that method, let alone guys actually actively trying to cause them. So clearly, whatever they were working on didn't do a damn thing to affect turnovers. Now, having said that, I think they'll create a lot more turnovers this year. Some of it will be just regression to the mean. They're going to get more turnovers because you can't possibly have fewer than 6 in a season. But the other reason is because they're going to play defense with a little bit more nuance. They're not going to be the most simplistically run defense in the country, where everybody knows exactly where you're going to be at all times and that you're always going to be in man because you can't teach zone. They're not going to do that. They're going to have a lot more opportunities to be in zone and to play it correctly. And if you listen to Tony White, he knows that means more eyes on the football, which means more opportunities to predict where said quarterback is going to throw the football and jump it. Good. That's going to happen. I believe it will. I don't think that any of this stuff, and I know we wrote about it on warchant.com. That's fine. We got to document what they're talking about at practice. But, I think they'll have more turnovers. I'm not entirely certain it'll be because of anything they do in practice. I believe it'll be because there'll be more nuance in the way they play defense.
Yeah, I think when you're discussing turnovers and generating turnovers, I feel like that has to be refined in terminology. Fumbles are pure luck in most circumstances, unless you have an elite pass rusher or an incredibly confusing front four, front seven scheme. Really, you can't count on a running back fumbling. You can't count on a tight end or a receiver fumbling. That can't be part of your game plan. You might be able to generate fumbles based upon pass rush or blitz pressures or things like that. Think about the Kalen DeLoach play that flipped the Clemson game on its head a couple of years ago. That is pure confusion. Somebody who's shot out of a cannon. It creates an opportunity for a turnover. Other than that, you really can't count on fumble luck. Interceptions, I think, is what we're talking about. We're not talking about creating turnovers. We're talking about creating interceptions. And you have to be looking for the football in order to be able to intercept the football. So, yes, to your point, if you're running more zone, I think you're going to put yourself in a position to intercept the ball more. But all of creating turnovers, in my opinion, is based upon confusion. You have to confuse the opponent and or fluster the opponent in order for there to be turnover opportunities. The quarterback has to not know where it's coming from. He has to guess or get flustered at times, or he just has to outright cough up the football because you have an excellent pass rush, or the protections are screwed up because of the confusion. The offensive line doesn't have everything slotted properly, and they expected something to come from the play side, and it comes from the weak side of the field. That's how you generate turnovers, I think, is largely through confusion and then keeping your eyes on the ball. But I think mostly when we're discussing, can you generate more turnovers, I think in our brains, we're thinking about interceptions specifically.
Well, yes, because we know fumbles are largely the byproduct of luck. Now, I will say, again, because I think there are points to make that are subtle here, but they matter. There are players. Peanut Tillman, became the author of the Punch-Out. I mean, this is what he did, and now everybody refers to it as such. We watch NFL games in which there are secondary players, guys, safeties, corners, that are amazingly adept when they come up to make a tackle at punching the ball out. And in the beginning, I used to think, well, everybody tries to punch the ball out, but it's really kind of rather lucky if you're able to do it. But that's not true, because there are some guys who are better at it than others. There are guys whose numbers will prove to you year over year that they're better at it than others. They didn't just have a good year and then suddenly fall back. No, they continue to be a guy that creates turnovers through that methodology. All right, so that does exist. But I'd much rather, especially in college, teach my guys proper technique and tackling and ensure that you get the guy to the ground than worry about punching at the ball, because we've all watched people get an extra 15 yards where people are trying to grab at the ball, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I agree. I think that these are rare birds that are able to do that with regularity.
Correct.
But I think that generally speaking, and I don't think this is anything major or deep analytically speaking, that's usually the job of the second or the third person. Like, that's a rule that's taught.
Correct.
If you're the second guy or the third guy in, then it's your job to go after the football.
Well, this is okay. So now you're getting me to the other point where you can help create turnovers. How about we swarm to the effing football? There we go. Okay, now that's something you can do. You can teach it, you can coach it, you can demand it. A year ago, they didn't do any of it. They lollygagged their way to the football. They didn't have evil intentions when they got there. They half-assed their way in getting a guy to the ground. None of it. If you swarm on defense, if all hats are racing to where the ball is, then you have a chance to prop a guy up while 6 sets of hands are ripping at the football. I mean, you do have that opportunity if you're going to play with that kind of vigor, that kind of passion, that kind of what for, as we say on defense. That's got to be your mentality. And I think it does lead to, in all likelihood, more often than not, it gives you the chance to create some turnovers that way. The other part of it is the zone that we're talking about, but also you pointed to pressure. I think, yes, confusion is nice. Obviously, getting a quarterback to not recognize what he's looking at leads to more interceptions. But I would also tell you, pressuring the quarterback, getting after the passer leads to a quarterback oftentimes trying to force one in or releasing it before he should because he doesn't want to get hit. So you create that. You get him off platform. Now you've got him running, trying to throw across his body in some instances. You can create, through pressure, more opportunities for interceptions that way as well. And then finally, I think you have to have an aggressive mindset in the secondary, depending on down, distance, time, score. You have to understand, listen, he called the blitz. We're bringing the house. The ball has to come out. He's going to release the ball in under 3 seconds. So in your mind, 1 second, 2 second, I'm in coverage. I'm jumping because he's not throwing deep here. Anything underneath, it's within eye shot, I can jump it. If he happens to stand on his feet and make a play and extend the play, I may be screwed. But that's the risk I'm willing to take based on down, distance, time, score.
Well, yeah, and that's also coached up at that principle is I'm okay with you giving up a touchdown there if we don't get home. That's right. On them, but you have to have that conversation with your corner. It's like you might look like you're going to get roasted on this play if we bring 6 and we have this. I mean, we scheme this thing up for this opponent. They don't know it's coming. I feel very good about this. So first move, jump it. If he runs a double move, we don't get home and they hit the double move, I ain't going to yell at you. I'm going to yell at my linebacker. I'm going to yell at my edge rusher. How the hell did you not get home in that particular situation? That has to be a mentality. Yeah, I would agree. These are little coaching points that can help you along the way, but I really think that the principal thing beyond confusion, pressure, is you have to see the football. Your eyes have to be towards the football. So I'll be fascinated to see if they can evoke aptitude in zone out of their guys. You're not going to know that until we get into, well, maybe the scrimmage might tell you a little bit just about how they're aligned and alignment and assignment and all those things. But you're really not going to know until you get into the throes of the fall about whether or not it's in their DNA or not. The swarming thing is a non-negotiable. That should always be a part of defense. And yet, it's funny. When you see it, it stands out. Not even just at Florida State, at other programs. Like, well, damn, they swarm to the football.
Yes.
That's got to be a big part of what we are.
When you watch the NCAA tournament in basketball, Tom, it's interesting. The teams that play very aggressive defensively, or they're from a league that plays that style, like for years, the Big East was really, really rugged. And one of the things that would always stand out is if you watched a tournament game where you have conferences clashing that don't ordinarily see each other, you can always tell the ones that are having a hard time adjusting to the more physical brand of basketball. Then it just comes down to what kind of referees do you have for that game? Are they going to call everything or are they going to call nothing? If they're going to call nothing, the bully league team is going to win the game because you'll see utter shock on the faces of those that aren't used to that style of ball. And by the time they adjust, they're down 20. And so they're in real bad shape. And it's true of football, too. The eye-opening suddenness with which an aggressive defense causes you to react, and you are getting hit by 4 guys every time you catch a football, it changes the game.
Yeah, you think twice. You look over your shoulder quicker. This is something that is very true in hockey. If you're an aggressive forechecking team, or not even just aggressive on the forecheck, just somebody who finishes every play with a hit, you start to see the other side. They check over their shoulder before the puck comes their way. Because they're expecting damage. They're expecting to be physically manipulated and brutalized. And so they don't want that. Okay, if I can get rid of this quicker. Now you start to see with receivers or blockers, there's this paranoia that happens that affords you a chance to go make a play because there's hesitation. Like, yeah, all of those little things add up. I would say, though, just looking at the way the two schemes fit this year, because you got to play complementary football, I am a little bit concerned about quick scores going both ways, or quick stop and a quick score. If you want to be extremely aggressive as a defense, does that play perfectly with an offense that's trying to go turbo, or is that exactly the opposite of what you need? I wonder about possessions, total plays. Can there be crazy runs in Florida State football games this year that were typically a very controlled environment last season. I know we want things to be different. Last year we saw several quarters, for example, where there might have been one possession per team. Like this year, I feel like you might see very streaky play from Florida State where there might be 14-3 or 17-7 runs that go both ways in the course of a game, just by nature of, if we're going to play aggressive on defense, well, we know we're trying to run 80, 90 plays on offense. That's a very interesting thing to try to piece together to play complementary football.
Never liked what we did in the past when we brought in Bryles. I hated that because I didn't think it really fit the complementary football style that you're talking about. I think that's problematic. I don't know how I feel about it this year, but I think you're hitting on a subject that I've thought a little bit about. I've kicked around in my head, and real quick on that, it's another topic for another day. I think Florida State's about to have a season of extremes. I think Florida State's about to do some things that are really good, where we're going to walk out of there on a Saturday and go, all right. And I think they're going to do some really bad things where they get their doors blown off by somebody who's able to control that tempo. Quarterback's not throwing the ball accurately early in the game. They bottle them up in the run game. You fall behind. You're still trying to play fast. There are too many 3-and-outs. Next thing you know, it's 17-0. Other team is wearing your defense down. You don't have depth on defense. You see what I'm saying? I think you're going to beat some people's asses where you walk out of there and go, all right. And right. I think you're going to be on the wrong end of some ugly games.
No, I totally agree that possibility is out there, unless from the head coaching standpoint, and I'm not necessarily calling for this because you're operating with less. So you kind of have to take it, I think, what comes with it. But it wouldn't shock me to be up 17-3 against Alabama because your turbo offense hits, there's a deflected pass, and you get an interception, and like maybe your defense isn't that great, but you have 3 possessions, you score, they haven't adjusted to your speed, you catch a turnover, you get a red zone stop, and there's your 17-3 run. Doesn't mean the game's over. No. But it just means that you're capable of going on a quick run in a quarter. Like, oh, my God. But at the same time, yeah, maybe your defense is out of sorts and Stanford runs something that you haven't seen in a while. And you're trying to run turbo on offense, and you have a drop. You have a holding penalty or whatever. And next thing you know, you're at the back half of the quarter. You've had 2 possessions. They were both 3-and-outs. But we've got 1 minute to play, and they wipe it up on the screen that Stanford's had the ball for 13 minutes.
Right.
In the first quarter, and you're down, 10-3. Like, yeah, I think all of those things are definitely possible if we're choosing to go super aggressive on defense, and also we're trying to run a million plays on offense. Like that's just part and parcel to it.
Well, this is where if you're Mike and you have fewer responsibilities than you did a year ago, which was, to call the worst offense in America, you can now take a big picture approach to everything, which is what you have to do when you are taking a back seat as a play caller. This should enable you to have individual conversations with all of your players, both on offense and defense. Calm a guy down, get a guy focused, whatever it might be. It should allow you to work the officials because you're not calling the next play. Let Gus do all that. Go talk to the officials about what they continue to miss. All of those things. And the other part of it is if you are up 17-3, you need to be able to walk over to Gus and say, we don't have to go 90 miles per hour here. It's midway through the second quarter. We possess the ball. We're up 2 scores. Don't go 90 miles per hour here. Let's slow things down. He's got to regulate all of it. That's his job now.
Yeah, I'll use a like score to that. 14-3. If a game is 14-3 in the second quarter, and we're playing, and it's one of our 12 this season, it's not over either way. Like, it's really not even close to over either way. Like, whereas last year, you're now
it was over.
I don't know, man. You're going to need a punt return, a kick return for a touchdown. You're going to need something to give me faith that the game is not over. But I feel like whether you're up or you're down 14-3 this year, or 21-10, like, that's nice or that's awful, but we're not done talking here.
Last year, Tom, if we're being honest, if this team got down 2 scores, the game was over.
Yeah.
Last year, Tom, if that other team, if they scored 14 points, it was over. There was a good chance we couldn't get to 14. I have never in my life said that the race in any particular game was to 10. But I felt that way a few times last year. The race is to 10. Can we get to 10? Like against Cal, can we get to 10?
It's just
Sweet Jesus.
well, that was think about it for the once in a lifetime quarterback that Miami got last year. They're up 21-0, right? And I think even there's a segment of that fan base when they play Syracuse and they blow that lead and they're up 21-0 that they realize, well, I mean, we do have Cam, but I'm not sure this game is over. Like, I'm going to feel that way this season, even if it's Virginia on a Friday night in Game 4 and we're up 21-0 second quarter. I'll be like, this offense does have a propensity to like not touch the ball for 45 minutes if you go too quick 3 and outs. So I think it's over, but if we can get that to 24, we can push that sucker to 24, then I'm going to feel very good.
It's hard to wrap your mind around. It's scary. It's scary. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. So tomorrow, everybody, tomorrow we will be at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 4:00. We'll be there. Hopefully you will join us at the CP for the start of Major League Baseball's season, the true start, the start in North America. That is Major League Baseball. Let's go. Let's go. Excited as can be. I'm also excited to tell you that this time tomorrow, I'll be reading probables. I will be reading probables. Can't do it today. Wanted to do it today. We know most of the probables. By the way, did I tell you that Jared Jones, the talented number 2 starter for the Pirates, got hurt?
Oh.
In the final week of spring training?
Ooh.
Unnecessarily on the mound. Going to be out for 6 weeks. Buddy. Alrighty. Really frustrating.
I mean, we don't have our ace. We're supposedly Shamanai as our ace. We don't have him till I think Memorial Day. So I hear you.
Yeah, it's a toughie. Did a little something here for the golf, which begins tomorrow. Some top 20 money on Michael Kim. Top 20 money. Let's see here. Upcoming. What do I got? Top 20 money on Jason Day. Top 20 money on Jacob Bridgman. Top 20 money on Aaron Rye, and top 20 money on Taylor Pendrith, I believe. Yeah. So a few, some nice, listen, it's Scotty Scheffler's tournament to lose or Rory McIlroy's tournament to lose, right? Those are the two guys. Those are the studs atop the lineup. But I rather enjoy it. I think this is kind of a fun tournament in Houston because guys like Min-Woo Lee, who can hit it a mile and have really deft touch with their hands around the greens, but are sometimes terrible putters, sometimes struggle with their mid-irons. They can play well here. So you got a lot of different kinds of players that you get a bunch of plus odds on to win some money. And so I've sprinkled a bunch of different lineups. Min-Woo Lee is in one of them. Another one is Jason Day, like I said. Tony Finau will play well here. And I think Gracerman and Wyndham Clark will play well here. And if you want a really long shot, throw a little something towards Davis Riley, who finished 7th at the Valspar last week, starting to get it together. He tied for top 14 last year on this course, likes this course, hasn't played well very many places. But when you see what he just finished at the Valspar, really difficult course, and then what he's done at this particular place in the last 2 years, it kind of marries to the form argument. So I'm going to marry the form and the course and the horse and say, we may get a top 20 out of a Davis Riley, and you can get him for like plus 9,000. So it's worth pizza money.
Okay. This is the week where I miss the match play. I miss it. That was a nice, different thing to enjoy just before major season. And I know that they're talking about trying to, revitalize and put somewhere on the schedule a match play. But that course was awesome in Austin. That format was a whole lot of fun. You had drivable par 4s. You had reachable par 5s that they'd end up hitting the ball 400 yards because they go down the hill. And that 18th hole, which was a drivable par 4, like that was a sick tournament. And I know that we don't live in there anymore, but I do miss that tournament because it was a nice little thing between the players and the masters to keep you interested.
Tom just doesn't care for the Texas Children's Houston Open and all the charity that they've been able to incorporate to help starving and really downtrodden children. But that's okay. I understand. Our entertainment is more important.
Michael Jordan meme. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, we'll see you guys tomorrow at the Quarter Pocket Bar and Grill. We'll have a show for you too, but most of it's going to be in the can because, damn it, we're going to watch baseball and it's going to be awesome. Till then, peace.